Hi everyone, and welcome to Devtoberfest 2023. Today is Frontend Friday, but we are not only going to talk about Frontend today, we will cover the full stack developer experience with UI5 and the SAP Cloud Application Programming Model. We will start with a backend built with SAP CAP and then add an SAP Fiori UI to it. And we will then see how we can start the backend and the frontend together with a single command and what packages help us achieve that. We're then going to add authentication to the mix, which will require us to take a new approach using the SAP Approuter, which is a term you've probably already read in the title of this video. Okay, so let's start with this SAP CAP app right here that is part of a project that uses NPM workspaces. And in case you're not familiar with NPM workspaces, it's a feature built into NPM that allows you to run and manage and configure multiple Node.js applications inside one bigger project. For example, here in the root package.json, I configured workspaces to live in the packages directory, which just means that all my Node.js apps live in this packages directory. And I can run them all from this package, from this root, although they're in this packages directory, and they share node modules, for example. So if I have applications that have a lot of redundant node modules, those will be resolved and installed more intelligently, I guess you could say, in the project root, and will be shared amongst those multiple Node.js apps. So in case you're not familiar with those, I highly recommend to check them out. I mean, the NPM workspaces. But we will also use them in this session, so you will get more familiar as we move on. All right, so the only Node.js app that we currently have, we will add more later on, is this CAP server. And if we check it out real quick, I will just do a CDS wash. So I'm in the correct directory already. I'm in the packages directory, and then in the CAP server. I will just run the CAP server with CDS wash right here. We will see that it is the pretty famous and standard bookshop that we all know. So for example, if I check out the books in this admin service right here, I get a forbidden. I'm not logged in as an admin, that's why I get a forbidden. So it's using basic auth, and I've logged in before but not as an admin, so this is why I get a 403. It's the basic bookshop thing. So if I go to the list of books, I see a list of books, which is cool. Okay, so now back to the CAP server. I can actually check the authentication configuration that we are currently running in this app with cds env requires.auth. So I can see that it is using basic auth and it's using the mocked strategy, and we have two users. We have a standard user, and then we have an admin user with the admin role. Okay, so now this is our backend. This is our foundation for today. And now we want to add a Fiori UI to it. And instead of, just putting it in the app folder, because I think probably most of you know that in a CAP server or in a CAP project, you could just create a new app directory in here, right? A new app directory, and you could just throw HTML files in there, and they would just get statically served alongside your CAP backend endpoints. But that is not how we should and how we want to run our UI5 apps, because UI5 apps actually should be used with the UI5 tooling. And the advantages of the UI5 tooling become very clear if we think about TypeScript, for example, because we cannot just simply run TypeScript files in the browser, so we can't just serve them statically. We do have to use the UI5 tooling to transpile the TypeScript code into JavaScript so that we can actually run it in the browser. So think about a TypeScript project that we have and a CAP server, and we want to run them, together in the same process, alongside each other, without creating destinations and proxying back and forth and spinning up multiple things. So in that case, there's a new package that we can use, and it's called CDS plugin UI5, right? CDS, since version 7 has this plugin mechanism, we can just hook in, plugins into the CAP server, and that's what we can also do with UI5. So when we start the CAP server, it will also automatically start the UI5 tooling alongside it. So we will not create this app folder. Instead, I will show you this CDS plugin UI5. It's a package available on NPM. You can check it out if you want. We'll also use it here now. And the cool thing is it's already built into the SAP Fiori tools. So you don't have to install it manually and fiddle around with it. We can just go into the Fiori tools application generator right here. Let's get rid of this for now. And let's just use a list report object page because that's very obvious when we're dealing with a bookshop. And for this Fiori app, we will connect to our local CAP project as the backend, as the data source. It's the CAP server, right? This is a project that we have here. And we'll just use the catalog service for now. The main entity is list of books, which is the exact same endpoint that I showed you in the browser just a second ago. And we'll call it UI module. The app title is, I'll just call it Devtoberfest for now. And we do want to configure advanced options because in the advanced options, we can say that we want to use the CDS plugin UI5. Here it is, right? And it's also a requirement for generating TypeScript apps. So we do want to enable TypeScript. So now we told the application generator, hey, we do want to use the CDS plugin UI5. So please be on the lookout for a CAP project and use the NPM workspaces and all that, because we want to run both the backend and the front end in the same process, just working hand in hand together. So let's click on finish. That will take a couple of minutes to install all the dependencies. Okay, so the Fiori project has been installed, and actually the application generator did a quote-unquote mistake here, because it just assumed that the CAP server was the root of our NPM workspaces configuration, when in fact the CAP server itself is part of a bigger project that is configured with NPM workspaces. So that's why there's been a new workspaces section added to the package.json of the CAP server, when in fact we already have that configuration one level up in the project root. So I will just get rid of it here. Get rid of it here and also remove this one new script that has been added. And I think that should do it, because we already have in the project root have the UI module as a separate as the SAP UX for the Fiori tooling and all that configured. And so now I told you before that we could simply put static things in the app folder and all of that, and to kind of demonstrate that we actually do not want to do that here, because we want to use the UI5 tooling, we'll go a different route and not put the UI module as a sort of child of the CAP server, like inside the app folder. To demonstrate that we do not want to do that, we will move the UI module out of the CAP project and put it next to the CAP project in spirit of the whole NPM workspaces thought and idea. We'll move it out of the CAP project and have it as a separate thing, but have it configured so that it works hand in hand with the CAP project. So, that was a lot of talking for just saying that we'll move the UI module into the packages and also move the services.cds into the UI module and remove the app folder. So now we have the CAP server and the UI module next to each other, but the CAP server is configured in a way that it is using the CDS plugin UI5. So that's the part that the Fiori Tools application generator added. So it's using the CDS plugin UI5, which means it's on the lookout for UI5 apps, right? And it wants to start them alongside, itself when it's running the CDS watch or CDS run. And one UI5 project that we have, linked to is the UI module, because we just added it as a dev dependency. And the UI module is our UI module, the thing that we just installed with the Fiori Tools application generator. And you might be wondering, how can this dev dependency be installed with just this, with just the wildcard? And that's just a feature of NPM workspaces and the module resolution and how it just magically resolves those dependencies. I think we could actually go into the node modules in the root and check the UI5 module dependency, and that should be a symbolic link to wherever our actual UI module is, right here. So we have a dev dependency UI module that is installed, quote unquote installed, because it's actually just as a symbolic link linking to our UI module directory right here. Okay, so again, just to sum up, we now have a CAP project that is on the lookout for UI5 apps. More specifically, it's looking for this UI module, UI5 app that we just installed. And we have this UI module next to the CAP project. All of that is configured with NPM workspaces. Okay, so now, first of all, let's save everything. And now in the terminal, in the CAP server, now we say CDS watch again. Remember before, it was just serving this. It was just serving the admin endpoint and it was serving the browse endpoint, right? But if I now scroll up or if I refresh, now it is also serving these UI5 apps here, right? You can see that in the UI module directory, there's an index.html, and it's not just a static index.html, but you can see this UI5 symbol next to it. So that indicates that it is using the UI5 tooling to serve this. It's not just statically serving it, it's using the UI5 tooling because that is required, for example, for TypeScript. So if we click on that, we see a working UI5 app. That's cool. So now let's display the title of the books. There we go. So now we have 5 books here in our list, and we can see that our UI module is, we check the file, it's using TypeScript, right? For example, here the component TS is a TS and not a JS. So that's pretty cool, right? That's the CDS plugin UI5, and that's all working very well. But now let's add quote unquote real authentication to the mix, as in the XSUA instance, for example, or service, for example, on SAP BTP. So I'll stop the server for now. And to add XSUA, the XSUA feature, could say, to a CAP project, we can just run cds add XSUA. And let's just install that real quick. And now to use XSUA as an authentication method for our CAP server, we have to create an instance of the XSUA service. And to do that, we have to log into Cloud Foundry and create a service there. I am already logged in, so let's just verify that, CF target. So I'm logged in to my trial account on SAP BTP, and I can create a new service of the XSUA instance. So just to kind of, for the bigger picture, we're now going into the hybrid mode here, right? Because so far we only worked with basic auth. It was all local, it was all fine and nice and small and easy to work with, but now we're entering the hybrid territory. So now we are running things locally, but connect to the cloud for some service instances. And actually, it's a good time to show you the CDS profiles that we have in place, because we have the that's a duplicate here. I'll just get rid of that. So we have a development profile, which is what we used prior, right? When we just ran it locally in development, which is what I showed you with CDS env requires auth. That's the development with basic auth. But now we're entering the hybrid territory. So now we have a hybrid setup where the authentication is XSUA, but the database is still SQL. So we're still working locally with SQLite. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so now we have to create the XSUA service instance. And for that, I can say CF create service. So I'm using the CF command line interface here. CF create service. I want to create an instance of the XSUA service. And the service plan is application. And I want to call it my XSUA. That's just the name of the service instance. And the configuration for this is in the XS security JSON file. So I've prepared this file before, and it's just giving some basic scopes and role templates for this XSUA instance. Security, okay, no typos, that's good. So let's see. Okay, it already exists. Yep, that's because this is not my first take. All right, let's delete that first. And yes, we want to delete it. Okay, so now the instance has been deleted. Let's recreate it just to make sure it gets the most up-to-date and all the correct configuration. Okay, service instance has been created, cool. Now, in order to work with the service instance, we need credentials for the service instance, aka a service key. So let's do a CF create service key for the instance my XSUA, and the service key should be called my SK, my service key. Very straightforward. Okay, so now we could retrieve the service key manually and put it in the CAP configuration so that the CAP server can connect to it and validate all the tokens and all that. But there's an easier way to do that, and that is just by saying CDS bind. So now we're telling the CAP server, the CDS tooling, we say CDS bind --to the my XSUA instance and use the my SK as a service key. So we're now telling CAP, hey, please connect to that service instance I've just set up in Cloud Foundry. This is the service instance name, and this is the service key name. So now it's retrieving the data from Cloud Foundry, and it should bind the local CAP project to this remote service instance. And now it's also giving us a hint that we can now run CDS watch profile hybrid to run the local CAP app, but with the remote configuration as far as authentication is concerned. So let's copy that and run it in hybrid mode. So now it should, just like before, start the SQLite database and start the UI5 tooling alongside it. And now the only difference is that it should authenticate or should validate the tokens with XSUA. So let's go here and do the same thing again, and now we're getting an unauthorized, which is actually correct because we haven't logged in, have we? Like, the CAP server now is validating and verifying our XSUA tokens, and it's now saying, hey, you don't have one. Like, it's not only not valid, you just don't have one, so you're unauthorized, right? So now we need a login flow. We as users actually have to log into our app to retrieve an XSUA token and send it to the CAP server, which now already tries to verify it. And for that, we need an Approuter. But previously, the problem with an app router was that it only serves static files or points to remote or points to some resource or service. But we want to use this in a dev scenario. So we have TypeScript, for example. We use the UI5 tooling. And in order to use the app router with the UI5 tooling, there's this dev app router. And now we come to the dev app router part, which is also part of the title. I will quickly show you the dev app router on npm.js.com. So this is the dev app router. You can read all about it on npm.js.com and also on GitHub in the UI5 community. You can check out the source code and contribute if you want. And this is the perfect package for us now because we have a scenario where we need a login flow. We have a CAP app that is using XSUA, so it's a hybrid scenario, but we cannot simply serve a static app, whatever that app is, could also be non-UI5. We cannot use that because we have TypeScript, right? So we have real authentication, we have real TypeScript, and we want the real app router, but in a dev scenario. So that's the perfect use case for the dev app router. So let's use it now. Let's stop this service right here. Okay, so now we have two Node.js apps currently. We have the backend and the front end. And now we'll add a third one, which is the app router, the dev app router. But I will just call it app router for now. So a new directory, app router. And any Node.js app always needs a package.json, right? And I'll quickly copy some code over that I have prepared. So the app router, the dev app router works just like the regular app router so that we can just start it with a simple script. And it has an XSApp.json and a default env.json and all that. Although there are some slight differences, we will get to that in just a second. So we have this package.json that describes our Node.js app, which is the app router. And we use this fancy way of saying, please use the dev app router package. That's just because we have the whole npm workspaces thing going on. And this is a directory path root, wherever that is, independent way of saying just find the dev app router package wherever it is and start it right away. So instead of pointing to the file manually and giving the file path, we can do this right here. And we are giving the CDS profile hybrid. We're passing that along to the command. Okay. And then as far as dev dependencies are concerned, this is where things get interesting because obviously the dev app router package is a dependency for the app router because we want to use this package. And now we can give the live apps that can sit next to the dev app router that have their own respective tooling. We can give these as dev dependencies to the dev app router. So instead of really pointing to them with a path, we can just use this wildcard right here, and the npm workspaces will do its magic and resolve these modules for us. And the dev app router is intelligent enough to see that the CAP server is actually, in fact, a CAP server. It's not just a name. It is really a CAP server, and it's doing the CDS watch for us, and it's really starting the CAP server. Same for the UI module. The dev app router knows or sees that this UI module is in fact a UI5 app, and it's starting the UI5 tooling for us behind the scenes. And also with the CAP and the UI5 module, it's doing the destinations and the connections behind the scenes automatically for us. Right, so this configuration right here would be enough to run an app router and have it configured so that it starts a CAP server and a UI5 tooling app simultaneously in the same port. But we will add some more fancy stuff to it, but this right here would be enough. Okay, so just like a regular app router, we can provide configurations for the dev app router in a default env.json. And again, I will copy some code over that I have prepared. Okay, so I want the dev app router to run on port 5001 because I'm on a Mac, and on a Mac the default port 5000 is occupied by some stuff. And I also provide this one destination right here for the CAP server, which is required because we actually need this forward auth token thingy right here, which is a bit of a specialty, and that is the only thing that the dev app router doesn't provide by default. So if we were to, if this was our configuration, we could just skip the manual and specific mentioning of the destination, because this right here would be what the dev app router creates automatically for us anyway. But with the forward auth token, we have to, put it in there manually and make sure to give it the same name as the dependency in the package.json. This might get changed in the future anyway, because I'm not sure I like this, because it would be much nicer if we could just skip this step. And then for the VCAP services, these are the credentials that we need to, or that the app router, the dev app router actually needs to connect to the remote XSUA instance, right? Again, remember, we're in this hybrid scenario. We want the app router to log us in with this XSUA instance. And for that, it just needs these credentials. But these credentials are actually outdated. These were from a different run. So I will get the most up-to-date credentials by running CF service key, and it was my XSUA. That's the name of the service instance, and my SK was the name of the service key. So let me copy these credentials and replace them. Okay, cool. So now we have all our configuration. We have described the dev app router in the package.json, and now we can add something really cool, which is, instead of doing an XSApp.json, we can do an XSDEF.json. And the name kind of implies that we want to separate our dev configuration very explicitly from the productive configuration, right? So we could reuse this app router directory for a productive app router if we wanted to, and kind of separate very, very clearly that we have dev configuration, that we have a prod configuration. So in here, I will create the XSDEF.json. And the XSDEF.json is a feature that comes with the dev app router. The regular app router, the productive SAP app router, doesn't know what XSDEF.json is. But you could say the XSDEF.json is like a superset of the XSApp.json, because it works just like the XSApp.json, but it has this one added feature that I will show you now. Again, I have prepared some code. So this looks just like a regular XSApp.json, but instead of for the UI module on the CAP server, remember, these are our UI5 apps running with the UI5 tooling, and this is our CAP server running with the CDS tooling. Instead of doing a source and a target and configuring a destination and all of that, we can just say, hey, use this dependency, which I have configured here, for example, for the UI module, use this dependency and create a route for it. And please use authentication type XSUA, because that's what we want to do here with this hybrid scenario. Same for the CAP server, right? So this dependency property here is the only added feature of the XSDEF.json. Other than that, it works just like the XSApp.json. And we could also place an XSApp.json next to this XSDEF.json here if we wanted to, as I said, to kind of reuse this app router folder for a productive scenario as well. Okay, so now we have everything set up. We're using the dev app router. We have a route for our UI module. It's using XSUA. We have a route for our CAP server. It's using XSUA. We have this user API, which I will show you in a minute too. And let's save everything. And let's navigate into our project root, because in our project root, which is also the root of our npm workspaces, I have a dev script configured, which again runs a dev script, but in the Approuter workspace. So in the project root, we can say if we run npm run dev here, it actually means please run npm run dev in the Approuter directory. All right. So I think I'll have to run an install once more. Let me just do that real quick. Okay, the install's ready, and now I will run npm run dev. Okay, so now it says that the app router is running on port 5001. Awesome. The CAP server is started at port 4004, just like before. And in the logs right here, we can also see we have some UI5 logs, which is good. So it's using the UI5 tooling. It's using authentication XSUA for the CDS part. It's using the SQLite database. So the logs look fine. Let me get a private window, a new one here, just to make sure that we see when it's logging us in and all that, because with a certificate, it's not always very obvious what happens really with a single sign-on and all that. So localhost 5001, it's picking up my SAP certificate for logging us in, and it is showing us the UI module and show us some titles here. There we go, and it's actually working. So awesome. So now we have a TypeScript app running locally, a UI5 TypeScript app, but it's actually using an XSUA instance in Cloud Foundry, all connected to a CAP backend that also validates and verifies the XSUA token. So that's the the use case for a dev app router. And yeah, I hope you like that. And if you ever have any questions regarding the app router, feel free to reach out to me. But before we close out, I will have some other things that I wanted to show you. So the live reload, for example, for the UI5 app also works. So let's say we go into the UI5 app, and in the web app, let's find anything that we can kind of change here. So Devtoberfest, let's change the title to Devtoberfest 2023. And if we go, all right, where's the title changed? Oh, anyway, that's the, I thought that was the title in the index. Let's go into the index and change the title here. That's the title I wanted to change. So now in the browser header title thingy, we should see Devtoberfest 2023 without having to manually refresh the UI5 app. So the live reload works as well for the UI5 part. And one thing I also wanted to mention is we can also use the dev app router without the XSUA part, right? Without doing all the remote connections and the default env.json and all that. But if we, like in that case, we wouldn't really have any benefit regarding or compared to simply using the CDS plugin UI5, which is what we used in the beginning, if you remember, which is the simpler way because we only have two modules flying around, which is the CAP and the UI5 module, right? So the dev app router works without XSUA and all that, but that's really where its strengths are. Okay, so I hope I got it all. I know that was a lot. If you ever have any questions regarding all of this, feel free to reach out. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, by the way, the dev app router obviously reuses the CDS plugin UI5 behind the scenes. So it didn't reinvent the wheel as far as, spinning things up, simultaneously in one process and all that. It didn't reinvent the wheel in that regard. So it's reusing this module. And also there's a third package that you can use So there's the CDS plugin UI5, which is kind of the CAP way of approaching things, right? It's starting the CAP server and hooking UI5 into it. There's also the other way where you can run a UI5 app and hook the CAP server into it, and that's called UI5 middleware CAP. Google that if you're interested. I'll put the link to that in the description below as well. And then now we have the Dev App Router, which kind of combines all of that, and it's the App Router facing, or App Router first way of doing all of that. Okay, that was a lot. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. And yeah, hope to talk to you soon. Bye.